says that you can go to a school not of record. And so if an attorney said that reading the current contract, then I'd probably get a new attorney. But if that's what the contract said, that's what you have to go. I think both sides have to go by whatever the contract says.
Thank you, Mr. Pearl.
The very first thing I would do is motion to fire the attorney. The attorney that we currently have was there for the contract. He's been our attorney all along. If this is the case, he has been advising us through this last 8 years while we have been conducting this policy. So he has not been advising us well. The second thing I would do is have a contract third-party attorney look at this contract and interpret it. I asked the school board for an independent look at the contract, a legal opinion. It was not shared with us.
Is there another question from the audience? Mr. Meadle.
We haven't talked, Mark Meadle, we haven't talked about BYOD tonight, and which is also an issue currently in the school district. I'd like their perspective individual of how they feel about BYOD, bring their own devices to school. What's their perspective on since it's been instituted, and whether they think it's a success or not, or anything they want to share on their opinions about BYOD. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. 1 minute each. We'll start with Mr. Dayton.
The Bring Your Own Device program, I don't have enough first-hand information on it. My daughter brings her cell phone to school. We like to have her the ability to contact us if she needs to. I think there are probably policies that need to be in place to make sure that these kids are using them wisely and not in a way that can be detrimental to the well-being of students around them. Ultimately, the parents have the choice, but when it becomes an interference to the other students, that's when we have to draw the line.
Ms. Regan?
Technology is a wonderful thing. I mean, it can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing. But I believe that your iPads, your laptops, some of those resources that we may not have enough of in the classroom can be a great asset. And there are a lot of students who learn really well using their laptop and their iPad versus trying to write notes and use it for that great things. But we do have to have some pretty strict policies in place. My son takes his cell phone. It's not allowed to be turned on. It is in his backpack, and the only time he's allowed to use it is if there were some sort of major emergency after school where he missed the bus and needed me, or he stayed for a sport and needed me. I have a very different view on that. I love technology, but there are times and places for it, and you need to limit it. So if it's in a classroom where it's being used properly, awesome. It can help them learn so much about today's world. But you know, walking around with your iPhone, checking your email is not something that I want to see.
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan.
This is a pilot program. If we can allow a student to bring a tool that will enhance their own individual learning styles, I think that's a good thing. Cell phones have always been allowed for security reasons. They weren't allowed to be used during things because we didn't want to restrict cell phones. That's separate from BYOD. It's a pilot program in each grade level or each school where it's being reviewed, and I certainly was inclined to ask that parent to ask that question at that meeting, and I said I was outvoted on allowing that. So it's a pilot program. It still needs a lot of review. More questions need to be posed before we go, but if we can find a tool that will help each student individually, then so be it, as long as it doesn't disrupt anyone else's ability to learn.
Thank you. Mr. Pearl.
I've attended all the BYOD meetings. There was an evaluation done. The evaluation consisted of a survey. Last night at the school board meeting, I asked the technical director if we had a device on our network that could tell us where all of these devices have gone, to which websites. I was informed that the device we have can, quote, produce hundreds of reports to tell us where all these devices go, how long they're there, however you want to look at it. 0 reports have been produced as part of the evaluation. School board member asked him, have you looked it over? And he said yes. And she goes, okay, I'm satisfied that we don't need these reports. I want the report as a parent. I want to see if the kids are wasting time or whether they're going to good sites. Overall, at this point, I'm opposed to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dubus.
Well, I think anytime you can infuse technology into the classroom and it's affordable, it's a great thing. this is in its early stage, and I was at the school board meeting when they did the presentation, and that's all, it's still in the initial stage. We haven't seen any, like Mr. Pearl said, any of the reports or any of the data of what's really going on. And until we do that, it's really hard to evaluate the program. And like Mr. Sullivan said, it's a pilot program, so when we can get that information, more than just a survey, put out to the parents or the students, then I think we can evaluate it, see if it's a good thing.
Thank you. I'm going to go forward and ask a couple more prepared questions, and then we'll come back to the audience to see if there are other ones from you. Let's start with Mr. Pearl. 2 minutes on this question. The New Hampshire School Board Association provides guidance to school board members. One suggested provision says that once full discussion has occurred and a board vote has been taken, individual board members should not publicly undermine the decision, even if they voted against the majority. What are your views on this?
I guess the question on that would be what undermines the decision. It's also been stated that you can voice your opinion in dissent of a decision because of the First Amendment. So it does not mean that you have to go around and say that you were in favor of it. I would not undermine a decision of the board by trying to rally voters against that decision or take action against the board. But if asked by a constituent if I supported that decision and I had voted against it, I would tell them no. And if they wanted further discussion, I would gladly engage them and share with them why I did not support them. So I would not undermine. But I am not afraid to share my opinion, and I think that is how we serve the community better. Because after I gave my opinion, I can bet you they would give me their opinion, and I would take that away with me. So I don't see it as a concern at all.
Thank you. Mr. Dubus.
Well, I think it's a democracy. If you don't cry if it's over, you vote, and whatever way the board decides is what you have to go with. You have to live with that. I have read the rules, the administrative rules for New Hampshire for the school boards, and I don't see any problem with it either. I would not like the silliness that we saw way back. Well, it wasn't school board, but it was with the town council when Caballos was starting thinking about coming here to Hooksett, and there was some undermining going on and some other issues that Hooksett had. I think it's silly and shouldn't happen. I think you have to go with the decisions, of the people who make those decisions and live with it.
Thank you. Mr. Damon?
If a school board votes in a way that I'm not in favor of, and that is the decision of the board, I would go along with it. I would, again, like Mr. Pearl said, have my own opinions on whether the decision is correct or not, but I would not go out of my way to try to find a way to stop the decision from proceeding. So I don't really see an issue there. That's what we have committees and boards for, because there will be different opinions, and we look for other ways to solve our differences.
Thank you. Ms. Regan?
I think when you vote, if someone asked me if I voted yes or no, I would have to say which way I voted. But at the same time, when that vote was taken, what I would hope is that the board is able to state their case. So if for some reason I did not agree with a vote, I would make sure that I had all the facts and evidence that I needed. Because there are many times where you can have an opinion on something, and once the facts are put in front of you and you really see why the decision is being made, you will change your vote, you'll change your mind. But if all the facts are on the table and I still don't agree with it, and I voted no, I wouldn't be afraid to say no, but I wouldn't undermine the decision of the board. It's a team effort. It's all of us working together for what we feel is the best for the community.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan.
I think we've all answered that question the same, and I will do that. We do our discussion, our questioning, and our debating at meetings. You cast a vote, and if you happen to be on the victorious side, so be it. If you're not, then you need to live by the decisions. If someone asks me questions, I will answer the question. I won't, I may vote no on certain things, I may vote yes. But a question was asked, and I was actually at the school district meeting, someone asked, and I explained that I wasn't in favor of that for this reason, but as a school board member, I do like discussions there. And if the vote is against me, then that's what it's going to be, and I will live with the majority of the rule. And I've been doing that for 18 years on both council and school board.
Thank you. Next question. This is a 2-minute question. We'll start with Mr. Dubis. What are the ingredients of a successful school district? And in your opinion, does Hooksett currently have those ingredients?
I think Hooksett does. I think it takes all facets. It takes an administration. Most importantly, it takes a great faculty, and I think that's where Hooksett excels. There are faculty that have been here for many years, and they do a great job, I think. I might be a little biased on the faculty portion, but I think that's the main ingredient to a successful school is the faculty. The administration, of course, counts. The school board in somewhat in deciding the policies and the things that to work with what they're given for monies, and I think it takes all of those things put together. I think it also takes accountability and evaluation. You need to evaluate what is going on constantly and continue to improve it if you can.
Thank you. Mr. David.
I think to define a successful school district is the first step. And what do we have for a successful school district are students that are contributing members of society. But also you have to have a maintained school district that doesn't go bankrupt after we produce these successful members of society. So the ingredients would be clearly quality teachers. And if you're paying quality teachers, you need to pay them fairly so they don't find a job somewhere else. Have them responsible for their job. Give them the responsibility for what they do. We need to have community involvement so that there's buy-in to this program of producing quality members of society. If you don't have buy-in for anything you do, you're not going to have the surrounding people with you in making that happen. And obviously we need to have the support from the people that are not sending kids to the school. So if we have successful students that are producing quality input to the community, then they'll be happy to provide that education to them.
Do I have any time left? Can I just add one thing I forgot to say? I'm sorry. If I may, just real quickly. I forgot one part, the important ingredient of a successful school, and that's the parents. I think getting the parents and the community involved is a factor in many excellent schools. The schools that excel, parents are a big part of that too.
Thank you. Ms. Regan.
I would agree with the other folks that are here that the faculty is a huge part of this puzzle. They see your children more hours of the day than you do. And having a great faculty and staff here in Hooksett, I feel very fortunate that we do have such a wonderful pool of folks here on our faculty. I believe that the tools that they need is an important thing. We are very fortunate to have some wonderful schools for our children. The community input in Hooksett has always stood out to me. I think we have some great parents that are very involved. The volunteer pool that we have is amazing. And we draw from all of that. Are we a successful school district? I think we're reasonably successful, but I think that we have the opportunity to go from good to great. I truly believe that nobody's ever perfect, and there are always things that we can do to improve that. And as we've all talked about earlier, there's some technologies and some communication tools and other resources that can be brought forward that I believe would help us go from that good to great and be more successful.
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan.
It's one thing I constantly hear is that Hooksett has a great school district. It really does take a village. It takes the parents, the students, the staff, the support staff, paraprofessionals, and it takes all of us because Hooksett, as Mrs. Regan said, has been supportive of the school district, the education of our students as long as I have. And I'm a product of a great Hooksett school district. The same teachers who taught me are still teaching